Let's do this. On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very special treat. He's the sensei of human performance, the sports psychologist, and the brilliant mind behind the iconic Seattle Seahawks. He's a mindset mogul, elite performance expert, visionary, and host of the phenomenal show Finding Mastery. He's worked in the trenches with some of the greatest and most dynamic athletes on the planet, helping them tap into their own magic and potential. He's just an overall juggernaut in all facets of life and a terrific human being. Please welcome the iconic Dr. Mike Gervais. How you doing, Dr. Mike?
Hey, that's some kind of intro.
How good?
I feel good. Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure all of that was true, but I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
I take great pride in the intros. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of yours, and also because preparation breeds confidence. I've done a lot of homework, and like I was saying before we went on air, I know you've done a lot of these. We'll keep this fresh. We're gonna get a little weird, and we're gonna have a ton of fun today.
Cool, man. Thank you for including me in your community.
My pleasure, Dr. Mike. You ready to rock?
I am.
Okay. I know this one might be a little bit obvious, but maybe not. What's your superpower?
Oh, here we go. I love it. I think about that question a lot. It's a weird thing. I've got a 12-year-old kid, and so a son, and he loves Marvel, and we talk about DC and Marvel, and I think that, not to be cheesy, but my superpower is that I feel like I understand the psychology of people, and I'm not sure I was born with it, but I've been at this thing for 30 some years. So when it comes to like understanding what's happening inside of people, it like that happens for me. And I go, oh, there it is. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, I see where they're coming from. Oh, that's it. And then it's not like a pedestrian approach to someone's psychology where it's like you kind of are guessing. It's like I'm able to quickly assess where, why, when, like how their internal life is working in a way to maybe better understand what they're searching for, what might come next if left unchecked, and essentially like how to help people from an inside out perspective. So not to be cheesy, it is my life effort, but so I don't think it's a superpower. I think it's something that I had to get in the woodshed and like chop a lot of wood, to get my arms around it.
I love the answer, and it's as deep as profound as we can expect from you. And I'm curious, based upon that answer, do you think the skills that you've developed helps you kind of facilitate like what patterns you see in certain people, or do you think you also have a really good intuition?
That's a cool question. I think that my ability to listen had to be earned. And so I think as a young kid that I was able to get glimpses of something and then call it intuition, call it, some of that maybe talent that I was kind of minimizing a few moments ago, but I was able to get glimpses of things. And then I thought I knew something, but really I wasn't getting the full picture. I was just getting the glimpses. So I think that the listening bit is an earned skill, but you combine that with like picking up micro expressions, picking up patterns, and then now understanding the theories that those patterns of thought map to. It's like those three, I think those three, again, I'll just say it, theories, psychological theories, micro expressions, and then listening deeply, not to the necessarily the words that people are sharing, but the place they're coming from. So we come from a place when we choose thoughts and words, and so listening for that place.
Yeah, this is going to be fun because I'm a mindset guy, but in my opinion, you're the mindset guy.
Oh, fun. Yeah. No. Yeah. Tell me, what do you mean you're a mindset guy? What does that mean?
So like I studied neurolinguistic programming for 10 years and I'm a mindset coach by trade, so to speak. So, but here's the thing, like, and I know it's cliche, but you never want to be the smartest guy in the room. You have a ton of experience. You've worked with the best in the world. So I'm so excited to learn some unbelievable tools from you here today. So that's why this is going to be so much fun for me personally. And then obviously the ever engaging CLS audience.
Yeah, cool, man. Congrats on what you're building. It's really cool.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. We're going to ask a couple more fun questions and then we're going to get deep. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Well, I'll describe myself, but if my wife was here, she'd probably look at me sideways like, really? So she'd have another 3 words. Yeah. So I'm really intense. I flat out love joy. And, so I would say intense, joy, And I'm choosing between two words because it really is an adventurepreneur. Like I love adventure. So getting into that thin herd space where risk is material and cold air on the skin is real. And so there's something about that adventure piece that's important to me. There's something about the intensity that I naturally come by. And then I think my wife would say otherwise to the joy piece. I think she, but I love to have fun. Yeah. So.
Look, life is meant to be lived. We're only here for a short amount of time.
Yeah. All right. Listen, I got my three. What are your three?
Ooh, I love being challenged.
Yeah.
I would say passionate, driven,
Mm.
and humor.
Yeah. There you
I think
go.
that's something that might
Hey,
surprise
you
people.
can't call yourself funny though.
That's why I said humor.
Yeah. You get right. Like it's like, that's up to other people, huh? Whether you're funny or not.
Yeah. And when
Yeah.
I said humor, I love to laugh.
Yeah.
I
There you go.
love to have a good belly laugh. There's nothing better.
It's so good. I know. I think like my intensity bit gets that all wound up. The intensity for me competes with the joy piece. So my consistent work, my uncommon work is to be intense and also be able to take the piss out of it and have a good time and like have deep joy as well as fun, surface fun. But my intensity is that thing is like pretty real.
Yeah. I can tell. And I'm very similar in that aspect. It's kind of a gift and a curse, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I don't want to trade it. I'll tell you that though.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. Dr. Mike, what makes you feel most alive?
Right on the edge of my capabilities, wherever that might be. And so it'd be easy to say surfing because that's where I first learned this aliveness is being right at the edge of my capabilities where there's a moment, a fraction of a moment to either hesitate or commit. And that thing, it is not adrenaline, but it is the place where you're sorting out if you have what it takes to step into it. And when I'm in those situations, I feel completely animated. But it's not like this hardcore risk thing. It's much deeper than that. And the deeper part is, yes, there's a physical nature to it, but there's a depth in it that I'm looking for because if I can sort it out in those kind of more surfacey, physical, maybe public facing environments, then I know I'm going to be better at doing it in the living room or with the intimate conversations with people I love. So right at the edge of capabilities is where I'm most alive.
Oof, love that. So deep and so valuable to the audience. When it comes to, I know there's a lot of similarities between you and me. I know that you're a nerd at heart, as am I, but I also know that you love to sharpen the axe. So I got to ask you, when it comes to film, fiction or nonfiction?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a junkie, dude, for nonfiction. I'll get lost in the fiction stuff. My son the other day he says, "I've got a library of books," and he goes, "Dad, I have a book for you." I go, "Oh, cool, son. What is it?" He goes, "It's fiction, Dad." And I go, "Well, what does that mean?" And he says, "Have you looked at your library, Dad? There's not one fiction book." So when it comes to movies and books, like I love the truth. I don't need a make-believe story. The true stories that are captured well, I mean, the human experience is flipping rad, like what we can experience. I don't need make-believe. I want to get to the real stuff that's been archived in a way and captured in a way that is like, oh, because if one person can do it, another can. And so I just feel like I get to stand on the shoulders of giants every time that I get to read something that informs me about human capability, about the frontier. And those are reference points for me. And I think the people that have the most reference points, like they end up being able to make smarter, more accurate, more dynamic decisions under duress. And so, or in inconsequential environments. So easy one for me.
I love that. And I agree on so many aspects of it. Like I'm a big believer in modeling and like grabbing attributes of greats that have done certain things so that I can acquire some of those attributes. So what you're saying really resonates. People who don't use the world as their playground, like the joke's on them. If people have had success in different areas, grab those attributes. The world's all about. Love that answer.
Cool, man.
All right, last deep one, and then we'll get started on the journey. When did you officially become Mike 2.0?
Oh, that's cool. I think I actually ask that question a lot. I don't say it that way. I say like, what version of you are you working on, to other folks? I think I'm at, and not to like be dismissive to the 2.0, but I think I'm at 5. I think I've had, when I look back, I think I've had 5 experiences, phases, if you will, that have been fundamental in my, that have changed me, or that I've been changed because of it. And so I think I'm at 5. And then you said when?
Yeah.
Yeah, the there was a business framework. So 4 was like when I had my son, right? And so that was 12 years ago. There was a business engagement that I had to chip in, like really put my money where my mouth was, full alignment, and there was people's livelihoods depending on it. And I wish I could say it was easy, but it was not. It was not an easy decision because of the magnitude of it. So working through that working through that process has got me into the other side of 5.0.
Love it. And 5.0 won't be the last point 0 version of you, right?
Yeah, no, let's hope not.
Yeah, that's
I mean, you never know. Like seriously, Craig, I don't know if we'll ever talk again, and I don't know if I'll make it till tonight. And like I don't know. That's why when you and I say goodbye, I promise you I'm going to say goodbye to honor that we might not ever be able to spend time with each other again. So like that's why I take the time and the things that we do seriously. That's where that intensity comes from. Not like this morbid thing, but it's like, man, this moment is precious and it's fragile, and oh, it's gone. So let me be in it, and
present.
towards my best abilities. And I never know when we get to meet again. So there's something about that up to 5.0 that's led me to the fragility of life.
I can definitely appreciate that. And I agree. Like, we don't know what tomorrow brings, not to sound too deep, but we always want to be present in the moment. That's why I appreciate your presence here today.
Oh, thank you, brother. Yeah.
So now the audience loves to hear about the journey, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because I want to talk about all the cool stuff that you're up to now. But you did grow up in Virginia, is that right?
Good job. Yeah. Not very well known, but yes.
Do my homework.
Mm-hmm.
And then how did you get to Cali?
Yeah. So my folks kind of dropped out and said, this is back in the 70s. So I'm going on 49. They dropped out, and they had, my sister and myself, and they basically were hippies and said, let's go live on a farm. And there's no street lights, dirt roads, um, big time laissez-faire way of growing up. Parenting was, there's no real boundaries. And so at some point my parents were like, this is awesome, but we should probably get back to like, some sustainable income. So my dad, and I'm filling in the holes as a 9-year-old, like, trying to remember that as a 9-year-old is different. So I'm making up some of the story, but my parents said, all right, we're gonna Pops is taking a job in the city, and it started working. So he was traveling a bunch from this really remote home that we had into the city. And then he got an opportunity, and it took him to California. And then so he went and scouted it, and he's like, oh, I think the fam's gonna love this. And then let me endearingly call myself a hillbilly for just a moment. And so, can you imagine like in the San Francisco Bay Area that this hillbilly from Virginia drops in? I mean, I did everything short of overalls and straw out of my teeth, and dropped in the city of San Francisco as what grade was I in? A 6th grader. Talk about, and it was like middle of my 6th grade year, dude. So, and then they moved me again in middle of my 9th grade year. And so different schools, different people. And so, yeah, so I had to earn some social EQ because I had to figure that stuff out quickly. And then I fell in love with the ocean. I had zero interest, dude, in stick and ball sport. I didn't get it. I didn't get these artificial rules that people were making up to call it play. And then these adults that had this arbitrary coaching mechanism to try to help somebody get better. And I did not get it at all. I needed something more pure, more true. And I knew that if Mother Nature, I mean, you make a mistake in Mother Nature and it's real. So those are the environments I was more attracted to.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that for full circle? Like the last 10 years been with the Seattle Seahawks, like one of the best stick and ball sports or teams.
That's what I was thinking when you were saying that. I was like, that's so ironic, but
Yeah.
it's funny. And San Francisco is a cool city. I ran the San Francisco Marathon there last year. Cool
Hey,
area.
way to sneak in the brag. That's cool.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, yeah, I wanted to tell you, this is a little off topic, but everything that you do, I'm such a believer in because I love that stuff too. And nothing gets you more excited than like
Yeah.
people tapping into their potential and exceeding what they thought possible for themselves. And I'll just
Hey,
be straight up with you.
wait, hold on. Was that your first marathon?
That was my third.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, I
I
haven't
ran,
cracked one.
yeah. So I got addicted. I have an addictive personality. I got into running 3 years ago, and then I ran 4 marathons that one year. I wanted to break 4 hours, so I broke four in San Francisco on a very tough course over the bridge. And then I was playing with the House of Money. So I ran Philly a couple months later and I got a 3:39. And now the pandemic's kind of, we're getting back to real life. I'm signed up for Chicago in October. But the reason I brought this up to you is because I'll be straight up with you. I've been a little complacent for the last year. No excuses on me. I've been running like 8:30 paces. And then I pulled out one of my old journals of a book I read called How Bad Do You Want It? And I looked at one of my notes and it said, are you really tired or is it your perception of what you think your effort is? All of a sudden, over the last month and a half, I've been running a 7 pace, which is the fastest I ever ran in my life. And the truth is it's not that I got more physically fit out of nowhere. It's just that my perception of the effort that I was putting out completely changed. I know this has a lot to do with what you do for a living and no one's better at it than you. And I just want to bring that up.
Oh man, no, thank you for the compliment and congrats on not only like sticking with it, which endurance sports are tricky, but having that fast of a clip speaks to both some discipline as well as some solid genetic talent that you're tapping into. That's really cool, dude.
I,
Along with being a business person, like,
yeah.
way to go.
I appreciate that. When you were younger and you were doing the sports, you had a little bit of like sports anxiety.
I did. Yeah, it was my first sport, that I took seriously was surfing. And yeah, like it's fashionable to call it like performance or pre something jitters, but like I just had anxiety looking back. I was anxious and it showed up in anything that I was doing. But as soon as I would be in an environment that had some extra intensity in it, it's like the cup was spilling over.
Yeah.
And so it's when I realized that there's this, I mean, this sounds like I'm super dense, but at age, it was 15, 16 in that range, where I was like, oh my God, there's this thing, there's psychology is a thing. And because physically I could do the thing, technically I could do the thing, but then as soon as the quote unquote judges, the lights turned on, if you will, the judges showed up, I couldn't do the thing. And that was purely mental. And thank God I had that experience because it led me eventually down this path to really want to understand my mind was hurting me. And there was, I don't want to over dramatize it, but like I had anxiety. So like, how do I undo this? How do I unravel? How do I create space and freedom? And again, like there's some density in here. It took me a long time to figure it out, but that has been my absolute commitment to myself first and now commitment to others.
So you decided that this was going to be your life's work?
No, it happened accidentally. My parents, I identified being super off access, counterculture, if you will, which has been costly in some respects because, when the world's zigging, I want to zag. It's just like this impulse that I have. Um, like, so I don't kind of fit in the traditional mold, if you will, and that's not comfortable for many. But what ended up happening, and being comfortable around people, like they pull you into their circle sometimes, and there's more available opportunities that way. But it also won't ever really allow you to be in the thin herd, on the frontier. So what happened? Long story, long narrative or preamble to get to this point in the story is that the PSAT and the SAT are the kind of scores that you take in high school or the test you take in high school to get into college. And I blew both of those off to go surfing. So my senior year, my parents never went to college. They didn't know how to really kind of harness any of this. But they're wise enough to pull me aside and they're like, hey son, this is like, I can be back in it. It's my kitchen. The sun's kind of coming in the kitchen window. And my mom says, we tried, but you don't have any options. So you got to get a job and get out. And I was like, what? This is like, I was young. I was 17 as a senior. And I was like, no. I knew I wasn't ready to go get a job and get out, but I didn't have any options in college. And so she says, well, you could do the community college thing. I was like, what? No, I mean, okay. Because I knew that I still wanted to surf. And I had more of that in me. And I knew I could do a hustle. I could hustle school and not really go and still surf. And then lo and behold, dude, there was 3 professors. They were best buds, Dr. Zenka, Dr. Perkins, and Dr. Kuzio. And it sounds like a bad joke I'm setting up, because one was a philosopher, one was a theologian, and one was a psychologist. And they saw this kid that was just wet behind the ears, literally and figuratively. And they were like, hey, kid, you're kind of a mess. You might be interested in this internal life thing. And they didn't know that I had anxiety. They didn't know that, but they saw a spark, because I was, the counterculture kid, right? Like the push against the grain. And I'd be the one standing like in the back of the room saying, hey, doc, can you say that in a different way? Because that didn't land, and like, who the hell is this kid? Like, and then afterwards, they're like, you're right. Like you forced me to say it better. And so we built this beautiful relationship, and they challenged the shit out of me. And I still didn't know I was going to follow psychology, but that was the origins. It was slow. It wasn't a lightning bolt moment.
Yeah, but it's so cool, and I appreciate the fact so much that you were fascinated by the internal work and all that. And I think that, I don't know if I should use the word sadly, but a lot of the world doesn't understand that most of their results come from inside.
Mm.
And I love that you help
Yeah.
people tap into that.
Yeah, I think that here's like I'll be super practical in this, is that psychology is invisible. And the invisible scares people, right? Like we like to touch and hold and see and have data, and we're tangible, concrete people for it. That's safe for many of us. So the invisible world's a little scary, but you know what? Gravity's invisible, but we see the downstream effect of gravity, right? We know its impact. Psychology is invisible, but we see the downstream / impact of psychology when it's working and when it's not. And so if I put some handles on it really quickly, is that I don't ever want to be whipped around by my environment. I made a promise to myself, dude, that shit ain't going to happen anymore. I'm not going to be whipped around by the external world. And so for me to do that, because that was that early stuff, right? The surfing, I was whipped around. I couldn't be me or do what I wanted to do, because I had this narrative that world was dangerous. And then so where'd that come from? We could get into the psychology of that if you wanted, but it's not material. The commitment is I made a promise, like I am not going to be beholden to my environment. And then, but I'm not saying that in an obtuse way. It's like gracefully, I want to have this relationship between my inner experience and my external world. But for me to be graceful in the way that I work and live, I need to have a better sense of my inner life and have some real command over the psychology and the psychological skills that will allow me to do that. So until somebody gets to a place where I was, which is sick and tired of being sick and tired, that until you make those first commitments, unwavering first principles, like those commitments, I think we are probably never going to play the same game. And the game, and I know you know this, Craig, that the game that those in the thin herd, like, and I'm not saying that's me, I'm saying the people I get to work with, that those people that are way out there on the frontier of human potential, they're playing a certain game. And if you don't make first commitments, you can't play that game.
Oof. And there's a big difference between inspiration and commitment, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's almost nauseatingly different.
I'm laughing because this stuff excites me so much, and having this conversation with you, like, these are the most stimulating thing. I love this stuff.
Yeah, dude. I can tell. Yeah. And I feel at home with you on it, because it feels like you want to get to the truth of it. And I don't have that shit cordoned off, but I can speak about the language on the frontier, the science that is part of it, and best practices to get there. And I will tell you that fundamental first commitments are part of it. Hey, and there's a dark side to it too now. You start making these real commitments to your life, and you can't be everyone to every, or you can't be, what am I trying to say? Everyone to, no.
Everything to everyone.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, like, and there's a dark side to it as well. And so I think that price to admission, I don't wish that on many, because there is, and I'm talking about the half percenters, there's a dark side that can come with it.
I love that. So true. So, and I want to get into all like the things that you do teach and help people with real quickly, just so the audience kind of has an idea. How did you end up with Pete and the Seahawks and so forth in a nutshell?
Well, right out of my graduate program, my PhD program, I got a job in pro hockey, and I called one of my mentors, and he says, "You sound excited, Mike." I said, "Yeah, I don't know hockey. Like, this is going to be awesome. Like, I really don't know it." And so I was looking forward to it, And he says, "Hey, call me excited after you've been fired 3 times because you stood for something." I said, "Right. Thank you." And so I didn't last very long in hockey. Because like I love the boys are awesome. It's a blue collar sport. Like,
Yeah,
I
it
feel like
is.
I'm one of them, like I love it. And but I needed to be true to me too, is I need to not stay inside of the rules, the arbitrary rules of man-made sport, and I needed to go back into the wild, if you will. And so I found myself helping some operators, special operators. I found myself helping. I went but I went into MMA and UFC to kind of work in that environment. And again, there's rules, but there's very few. And then I found myself back in the fold with action sports, helping round out, be part of, support, on the fringe sometimes of the Red Bull high performance program. And so there's a project that you might be familiar with called Red Bull Stratos, where Felix Baumgartner jumped from outer space at 130,000 feet, or the edge of space. And that was part of it. Is like when I met Coach Carrol, a mutual friend just put us together for dinner. And we had a great conversation. And he says, "Hey, why don't you come up and see, what I'm trying to create?" And out of respect for the good conversation, I was like, "Yeah, I'd like to." But also, he knew my hesitancy about stick and ball kind of stuff. And so I came up, "Hey, Craig, it was different. It was different." So it was me going back to my kind of roots of that counterculture, human frontier endeavors, that led me to really smell and sniff out when something was different. And so I don't know, we ended up spending 9 years with each other at the Seattle Seahawks. I'm fortunate enough to win the whole thing in a grand way and lose the whole thing in a grand way.
Yeah. You have a Super Bowl ring?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
cool, huh?
Very cool. And one of the coolest things about Pete that I appreciate so much as a leader and a coach is his ability to build a community and to bring out the best in people. Like there's 2 types of coaches, really, in my opinion. Like one is X's and O's, and then there's another one that like elevates the players. That's just my opinion. But he obviously does a little bit of both, but he's so good at getting players together. So what he does best, and then you add your dynamic, such a special relationship. I could personally see it, no problem.
I appreciate you. What we ended up doing about 18 months of working together, there's a fun story that, as I recall it, he came flying out of his office, and if in the training center,
I just got a visual.
dude, and there's music blaring from his office, and John Schneider down the hall, music's blaring from his office. And, I'm in the conference room, kind of up on the whiteboard doing some stuff. And he comes flying out and he goes, "Mike, can you feel this?" I was like, "Yeah." And so what he was talking about was 100 some alpha competitors pointing their nose in the same direction. And, his stuff is about culture. And then my stuff is about those that are in the culture that want to be their best, the psychological skills. So you layer psychology and culture over, and 1+1 was 11 for sure. And then there's a watershed moment in my professional career when he says, do you think anyone outside of sport would be interested in what we're doing? And I couldn't kind of get yes or no out. And he goes, let's just write it down. It's good. Let's write it down. So back of a napkin type thing, we wrote down, his stuff, my stuff, our collective stuff. We put it onto a whiteboard. Then we put it onto a deck eventually. And then 4 weeks into Microsoft having their new CEO, his name's brilliant human, Satya Nadella. I was fortunate to have a conversation with him, and he was like, yeah, here's what I'm trying to do. And it's like, that's gold, what you guys are trying to do. And so there was this nice, like, right time, right moment, right vibe, right science, right art, where it all lined up. And from that point on, they helped us shape what is now a current business model for myself, which is pulling back the curtain and showing you exactly how to train and condition your mind to live a flourishing, high-performing life. And so it's an 8-week online course, and they helped us build it. And it's, for the first time, really, it's available to companies outside of Microsoft and individuals outside of Microsoft as well. So that's been available for about 18 months now as well. So, or no, a little bit longer. So that's the current kind of business that I'm doing right now, is helping small, large companies and individuals organize their inner life so that they can flat out flourish and sustain high performance.
I love the collaboration between you two. And for the audience listening, like, should you go check out what Dr. Mike's got going on? It's a no-brainer. There's no one better at the inner work than he is. And I love that you told that story. And also, real quickly, you mentioned UFC, and I know you worked with them and so forth. And I've had a bunch of fighters on my
I
show.
saw that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw that.
I
Yeah.
love the UFC, Wonder Boy and a couple others. It's interesting. I take it you're a UFC fan?
Oh, I think that the arts are incredible.
Okay, good. So the last Conor McGregor fight, I'm a fan, and I was watching his interviews that whole week leading up to it, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's going to kill him. He's going to kick his ass with the case of me." And I looked at him, and I was like, "There's just something off. He doesn't look present. He doesn't look like he really wants to be there." And I kept saying it, and then obviously, he got knocked out the first time in his career. But I'm assuming that, have you been watching it? You noticed the same thing?
I don't think I'm as good as you are at that. But I'll tell you a good story, I think, that has been meaningful for me. Do you know Big John McCarthy? Do you know that name?
It sounds very familiar.
So Big John is one of the refs. He was like the first ref in the UFC, maybe second, I don't know. But
Okay.
he was like UFC 1 or 2, he was a ref. And so Big John McCarthy, you'll see his name now. And he's a big human, And so, and so I took him, Mike Pyle. Do you remember Mike Pyle?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Rich Franklin. And
Throwbacks.
yeah, so I took the three of them. I was doing some work with fighter pilots. And so I took the three of them onto a deployed aircraft carrier somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic. So they hooked us. We landed on the aircraft carrier, got shot off, and I took those three, to work with the sailors. And then I was doing some stuff with the pilots. And on the flight back, it was an amazing experience, dude. And on the flight back, John and I, it was like a 6-hour flight, and John and I could not stop talking. And it was like 1 a.m. on the flight. And he says, Mike, he goes, this is gonna sound weird, but I've stood at the beginning of fights, and I've watched two equally skilled men walk into the arena and then be inches away from each other before the bell rings. He says, I think I'm 95 or better % accurate on, in that moment, picking who the winner is going to be.
I
So
understand.
whatever you picked up on, yeah, cool. And John definitely has it.
Yeah, that's a cool story.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me. Yeah. A lot of times you talk about being in that flow state,
Mm.
um, which is so key. And I would love for the audience to get an idea of what exactly you mean by that.
So flow state is a scientific term, and it's the most optimal state a human can be in. It's where time slows down or speeds up. There's a fluidity to it. That's where it gets the name flow. And it's as if you are completely syncopated with time. And the way that you're moving is in a way that is completely harmonious to the demands of the environment. And so, again, it's the most optimal state a human can be in. There are ways that we can train our minds and organize our lives to increase the frequency of flow state. And athletes call it being in the zone. Musicians call it being in the pocket. You know, there's lots of names for it across industries. And so it's an on purpose accident. You can't say, right, today I'm going to flow state, boys. Here we go. You can't do that. It's an on purpose accident where you start to get really good at the triggers and tripwires to enter into flow state. One of those triggers is deep focus. Another one of those triggers is loving risk and challenge. Another one of those triggers is having the internal skills to be able to speak to yourself when you're in the thick of the challenge. And so I can keep going on, but you got to work those inner skills to find an increased frequency of flow state. And again, flow state is the most optimal state a human can be in. Mindfulness, Craig, is one of the practices that, according to good research, has an increased frequency of flow state. Meditation, how about it?
Makes perfect sense. When you say it, the way you articulate it, it's like a no-brainer.
No brainer. Yeah. And so what percentage of the population of your community, it'd be cool if you did a little poll. Hey, are you meditating? You know, and see what your community is doing there. Because it like the commitment to help your crew, your community get better. I don't know how to do it without meditation. I've been practicing 22 years. The science is freaky, how good it is, like freaky. And it's been around, like I said, you know, over 2,600 years, you know, like 2,600 years is practice. It's in all 11 of the world religions. There's some sort of practice about it. Now they're using it for a spiritual aim, which it certainly can be. And you can also use it in a secular way for wisdom, you know? And so, I mean, the changes, I could rattle off some research right now that you'd be like, wow, that's dope. And so I can't imagine if people are wanting to be better and get better and be more present, really, that daily mindfulness is not part of the practice.
Yeah. And similar to you, because I've heard you mention this before, meditation at first didn't come so natural. You to work at it, right?
Oh yeah, it's hard, dude. It's still hard. You know, it's still, I'm kind of scratchy, you know, when I get a couple minutes in or a couple seconds in and my mind is flooded with all the things I want to go do or need to go do or whatever. It's like, that's why it's training though. And so what you're doing is literally through awareness of your thoughts, emotions, body sensations, the world around you. Through awareness, you are training your mind to refocus back on one thing. And at the outset of the meditation, you decide what the one thing is. The one thing could be answering a question. Who am I? The one thing could be your breathing, the inhale, then the exhale. Like you decide really what that is. And when your mind wanders away from the one thing, it's like, oh, okay, let me refocus back to the one thing. That's all this is. I'm telling you, it's a game changer.
I love it. A couple cool things that I wrote down that I've heard you say that really stuck home with me that I want the audience to hear is this. People fundamentally committed to the long game of figuring it out, how the thing that is the most exciting to them, how it works. And that's in regards to you saying the craft matters less than the ability to access the craft.
Yeah, people fall to their level of training. And so if you can't access your craft because of a weak psychological framework or weak psychological skills, doesn't matter how good you are. And you see this all the time in the pros. In practice, they're lights out. Lights out. This was me as a kid. And then as soon as, quote unquote, there's pressure on the system, and what happens for people is there's a constriction, and literally physically they tighten up. Psychologically tightening up means that they can no longer access the way that they need to think, the way that they need to respond. But if you physically tighten up, your muscles are short, just a little bit shorter. And I'm exaggerating just to prove the point. But if it's just a little bit shorter and now you're in a different body and a different mind because of this quote unquote constriction, you can't access the good stuff. And that shows up in boardrooms, it shows up in living rooms, it shows up in creative sessions. And so as soon as we feel pressure, it's easy to say, just love it. Don't worry, you'll be okay. You need skills, like, and that's the thing is that, I don't know how old you are, but 20 years ago, where did you go get psychological skills training? You had to go to a shrink. And I'm a shrink, I'm a licensed psychologist, but now it's changing because the extraordinaries, those men, women, people that are doing the extraordinary, they are reminding us there's three things that you can train. You can train your craft, you can train your body, and you can train your mind. They're not leaving one of them up to chance. So why should we?
I love it. I love that we're both grinning from ear to ear right now.
I
So
know, man.
there's those people that they feel that pressure as opposed to practice the game time. And then there's the rare breeds, guys like Tom Brady and someone that you work with very intimately, Russell Wilson, who actually elevate their performance when the lights are brightest. Why is that?
No, I think they fall to the level of training. I think that their mental training and physical and technical training are so at such a high level that they don't find constriction because they're like physically and technically they're sound. Mentally, they love challenge. And why would somebody love the challenge? Because they're actually good at it. Why would they be good at it? Because they've got the inner skills to figure out how to be good in those environments. If you don't, people that aren't psychologically sound and skilled, like, and I'm talking, let's be concrete. Confidence is a skill. Being calm is a skill. Deep focus is a skill. Optimism is a trainable skill. So I can keep going down the list, but if you don't have those skills in place, then as soon as you find yourself in a stressful environment, you don't like it. You know what they're looking for? Relief. Get me out of here. Get this over with. They don't say it out loud because it sounds whack, but that's what they're looking for. And so let's just use Tom Brady for an example. Like, hey, he's good because his mind's good, his craft is good, his body's good. He loves those moments because he's mentally skilled at dealing with them. So we fall to our level of training. I don't think we rise to the occasion.
I love that. And maybe in those big moments, the juggernauts that we were just speaking about fall to a level of training, but maybe most of the other people around them, maybe they succumb to a little bit of pressure. So it even makes them stand out a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think let's call the other 98 percenters, of the 1%, right? They're different because they're feeling some of that pressure and not knowing how to get loose, how to get free. And that is just psychological. And so, but literally 10, 20 years ago, the best we were doing for athletes was coaches saying, hey, just relax, focus. But now it's like, show me how, coach. And so that's where you come in, Craig. It's like, I'll show you exactly how to focus. We're not hype men. We're skilled technicians that are showing people actually how to train. And some of that training is, getting down to the core philosophy that you're going to operate from. And so that's like writing the source code, like what are those first commitments I'm going to make in my life? And like I said earlier, like, I don't think you can play the same game. I don't think people can play the game maybe they want to play without making fundamental commitments in their life. And that means fundamentally organizing their life around those commitments. And when you see the next time you see Craig, like an Olympian, for our confused country that we're in right now, next time you see one of our Olympians, one of our brightest on the top of the podium, national anthems being played, the whole thing, it's a mistake just to think about how physically or mentally talented they are or technically skilled. They weren't born that way. I think the opportunity is to double click and say, how do they organize their life? You know how they do it? Around the fundamental principles. Relentlessly, uncommonly so. That's how they do it. The secret, there are no secrets. The secret sauce, to make fun of that, is that they just flat out committed to them being their best every day, which means that they're looking to see if their anchors will hold true to the weather of the storm. They want to know if their anchor is going to hold true. So, hey, Craig, put me in a hard situation today. Craig, what are we doing? Craig, you're my coach, right? Craig, get me uncomfortable. Craig, what? Damn, I didn't do that shit right. Like, Craig, sharpen me up now. Where did I get twisted there? Because all of a sudden I was sweating, I felt weird, and I hadn't even stood up yet. And then I was stammering over my words, and I just felt that I was a mess. Like, Craig, come on, man, I need some skills. That's our work, dude.
That hits home. Bang, right? That's unbelievable stuff. This is great. Another thing that you said that I love is failure is not winning or losing. Failure is not being authentic. Failure is not taking a shot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I said it. I guess I do agree. Yeah. I think
Like
that
I always tell my clients, like, if you take a swing and strike out, it's okay. We'll learn from it. We'll adapt. We'll improve. But if you just leave the bat on your shoulder and don't even take a shot, that I can't get behind.
yeah. I mean, what I've learned from action sport athletes, like again, the half percenters, and I've had some fun ones on the Finding Mastery podcast. Like there's I'm thinking of a few right now. Rich Franklin was on. We talked about him earlier. Mark Matthews was on. One of the big wave legends, Kai Lenny. You know, like we can go on to some true legends. Alex Honnold. You know what Alex did, right? Where he scaled 3,000-foot vertical without a rope. I mean, radical. But anyways, what they've taught me is that it's way more painful to finally get to the edge and to not be able to go because they have too much adrenaline. That's way more painful than going and breaking bones. So if you don't have the ability to go for it, and listen, they know if they've got too much adrenaline in their system, they could die. So they need to go and be grounded when they go. Imagine being on a 60-foot spine in the backcountry of wherever, and your legs are shaking as you're going to drop into a chute that's never really been done with a really heavy exit. And it's not that their legs don't shake, but it's they need to have command at a certain level of that shake. And so it's like command of the uncontrollable is a weird thing to think about. But so anyways, it shows up in boardrooms too. It shows up in hallways where, or let's call it Teams calls or Zoom calls where, you know, one of your superiors or bosses or peers has a challenging tone in what they say. And we talk a big game about it. And then as soon as they kind of check us, square up our shoulders or whatever, and have a real conversation, that all of a sudden we submit. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Oh, my bad. You know?
Yeah,
So
I love it. Something else that you said that really got me, and I totally agree, is you don't particularly love the word mindset hacks, tips and hacks. What are the robust strategies and mental skills that someone could develop to handle when something comes up, right?
yeah, you know, I don't know if you like the word hack or not, but like, hey, your people don't want you to be a hack. You don't want your tattoo artist to be a hack, do you? You don't want your neurosurgeon to be a hack. You don't want your parents to be a hack. Like, you know, like what are we doing? Like a hack is a shortcut, you know? And it's like, there's no shortcuts. There just aren't any. There's efficiencies that we can try to figure out, no doubt. So that's where I have an aversion to it. So what are the robust strategies? One is know your personal philosophy. Write down your first principles. Just know them. Move them out of an intellectual exercise, put them on paper, commit to them, really embrace and swallow them, practice them. You don't own it until it costs you something. Most people never quite get it written down. So they live a junkyard philosophy with really cool ideas kind of thrown all over the place. You know, so when you know your first core principles and they're true to you and you bounce up against a stressful environment, here's the cool part, Craig. Once you know them and you've practiced them, nobody can take them away from you. Nobody can. And so it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to be about it all the time. That's where psychological skills come in. So once you know first principles, and then you purposely put yourself in challenging environments because you want to do some cool shit in your life, that challenging environments comes from a purpose, that is real to you. So second big rock to get in the container is purpose. Just get clear on it. What is your life purpose? And you're like, God, I don't know. I say, yeah, I didn't know either when I first was asked that question. I thought I was supposed to know. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Well, just write it down. You get to decide. This is what psychological agency is. You get to decide how you're going to govern your life. So what is your purpose? And then you build the mental skills so that you can be about it more often. What are those skills? I kind of mentioned it earlier. Calm, awareness, that's meditation. Confidence, not arrogance, not hubrism, but just good old fashioned, I think I can do this. Not I know I can, because that's bullshit. You don't know you can do anything. But I think if I bring myself in the right way, I think I can get this done. Hey, you want to try to get after it with me? Because nobody does the extraordinary alone, Craig. So we need each other.
Love it.
So that's a robust principle that I just threw in there, which is solid, rock solid bedrock relationships. And so the way we build strong relationships is by knowing the other and being vulnerable enough that they might be able to really know you, and then go get messy together. And when you get messy, you make all these mistakes, you figure it out, you have each other's back, and you come out of it stronger. So those are some basics.
I love it. And we'll end it with this, Dr. Mike. I have to ask you, people ask me all the time, but you specifically, I'm so intrigued by, who are some sources of inspiration to you? Who are people who have been mentors to you? Some people that you've sharpened the axe to over the years?
Oh, cool question, dude. First and foremost, my wife, I've known her since I was 15. And so, man, I'm just fortunate there to have that, relationship where I got to hang and party and love my best friend, like it's awesome. And so, she holds the mirror and she holds that shit up to me all the time. Like, really? So that's one, that's a big one. Gary de Blasio's my mentor, has been a mentor since I was a young kid as well. What's up, Gary? And he's got another mirror. He holds me true in that respect. And then I feel like informally, almost every client, that I get to work with is teaching me. And so they're asking for some support, guidance, some whatever, but I feel like I'm a student of theirs as well. So it's a good symbiotic approach there. So that's a general one at the end, but the other two were big time for me.
I love it. I know for a fact the audience is going to fall in love with you in 2 seconds, because I'm all about the mindset and you take this to a whole nother level. I'm so fascinated by you. I'm such a fan. Where can the CLS audience catch up with you? Where can they follow you? Where do you hang out the most?
Hey, dude, I want to say thank you, man. You created some space for us to play. You asked the questions that I don't get asked very often. And then you allowed me to kind of go to some places that feel appropriately edgy, just because I hear your accent, brother. I know you got a little edge to you in there, the way you hold yourself. So I just want to say thank you for including me and creating the space, and then having informed questions here. So that's fun for me. And then where can they go? So findingmastery.net is a website that's got kind of everything. It's got the online course that we spoke about. It's got the podcast, the Finding Mastery podcast. And then it's also got all the social handles, which is all the social handles are at Michael Gervais, Gervais. And so all of those are available. Hey, how about this, Craig? Let's do this. I think if I can make an assumption that you're switched on, and I would imagine that your community is switched on, they really want to get after it. Do you want to do a little competition, and we give away one of the courses?
Sure.
All right. So the online course, 8 weeks, pull back the curtain, show you exactly how to train your mind. And let's do a competition on social where they tag you, they tag me, they tag Finding Mastery, and then they don't have to tag Finding Mastery. They can just you and me, and then write down. Let's do it this way. Write down why training their mind right now matters to them. Let's do that. And then whoever kind of comes with some fire, it's a $500 course. Let's compete and give it out to them. What do you think?
Done.
Yeah.
Everybody wins.
Everybody. Well, no, one person wins. Hey, you pick.
Yeah.
You pick who that person will be. How about it?
But at least everyone else that competes gets an opportunity to kind of dig deep for a moment.
I love that. Yes, that's sharp right there. Yeah. Good. Okay, good.
So whose social media page are we doing this on? Mine?
No, we'll do it. They go wherever. They tag you, tag me, and then write a reason. So you want to do Instagram or Twitter? Which is better for you?
Instagram.
All right. So on Instagram, they tag you, they tag me, and write a little brief description about why they want to, whatever. So it's going to be random posts, not just one post. You know what I mean?
I love it.
Yeah. Okay, good, dude.
This is too much fun. The truth of the matter is I could talk to you all day, Dr. Mike. I think you know that. I just want to say you're the definition of resilience, grit, curiosity, and heart, from transforming from a young surfer with anxiety to helping people live in the present moment and tap into all the potential. You've worked and trained with the very best of them. Your mindset is absolutely bulletproof, and you are the sensei of human performance. I can personally guarantee that your best is yet to come. You're someone I admire, I appreciate, I respect very much. And obviously, like we just discussed, you have my word right here, right now. This will definitely not be the last time that you and I collaborate. And I appreciate you.
What fire, dude. Appreciate you, Craig. Thank you. I feel appreciated. So thank you very much, Craig.